One of the biggest debates in the bird world is whether woodpeckers are birds or not. Of course they are birds. If you didn't know that, then what are you doing watching this video? Anyway, moving on. It seems almost impossible for birds to sit still. When you look at them, they're either running around the tree or flying up into the air or diving down from a great height towards the forest floor. It would be exhausting just watching them if they weren't so darn cute. But with woodpeckers, it's a whole different story because these little guys can literally sit there for hours without moving a single feather. Well, except for the headbanging. Of course, that never stops. In fact, if you've ever tried to take a picture of a woodpecker, you know how frustrating it can be. They're always moving their heads at the exact wrong moment. So today, we're going to tell you all about woodpeckers. You'll learn where they live, what they eat, and of course, why they bang their heads so much. We'll even answer the question of whether you should invite one into your house, but only if you like splinters in your walls. These birds are found across the northern hemisphere, but they are most diverse in the neotropics. In other words, the greater part of South America. And Africa has its own endemic group of woodpeckers, too. Despite their striking appearance, woodpeckers belong to the family Picidae, which makes up only 3% of all passerine species. There are 218 species in 40 genera in this family, though the number of species varies depending on the classification. This means that woodpeckers aren't a very big family, but there are still quite a few members. There's a wide variety of sizes among them. The smallest is the acorn woodpecker, which reaches a maximum length of 6 inches or 15 centimeters and weighs less than 2 ounces or 55 grams. On the other hand, the largest is the great blue woodpecker, which measures up to 2 feet, 9 inches or 85 centimeters in length. These giants can weigh over 3 pounds or 1.5 kilograms. Other notable members of the family include the red-bellied woodpecker, the pileated woodpecker, the downy woodpecker, and of course, the strange-looking, very famous, yet somehow underrated, the kookaburra. The name woodpecker was derived from the Old English word wood, meaning wood and cope, which referred to the bird's habit of pecking at trees. And although they are called woodpeckers, some species prefer to forage in open country. For example, the red-headed woodpecker, which is mostly found in open woodlands and agricultural areas of North America. But don't worry, you won't confuse them with any other bird. They have very distinctive features. They usually have long, straight beaks, strong legs, and zygodactyl feet with 2 toes pointing forward and 2 pointing back. And while there is some variation between species, most woodpeckers have a squared or rectangular shape to their bodies. They also have stiff tail feathers that serve as a prop when they're clinging to a tree. Hence the expression, as steady as a woodpecker. Not all, but many woodpeckers have the ability to rotate their ankles, allowing them to grip branches more securely. However, unlike most birds, woodpeckers cannot rotate their feet, which means they can only grip branches in one direction. As far as their colors go, they come in a range of shades from gray to black, white, and red, as well as combinations of these 3 colors. And perhaps the most beautiful woodpecker is These Central American birds have iridescent green and blue feathers and a long tail that can reach 2/3 of their total length. These birds typically inhabit woodlands, but some prefer suburban gardens while others can adapt to urban environments. For example, the Eurasian green woodpecker can be spotted in parks, gardens, and even in the countryside. Some woodpeckers are partial to dead trees because they are easier to drill through. But as we said, some species prefer open habitats and can often be seen foraging on the ground. Their diet consists mainly of wood-boring insects such as bark beetles, but some species feed on fruit, especially when they're raising their young. Woodpeckers have a particular taste for mistletoe berries. In fact, they play an important role in dispersing mistletoe seeds. As for where they build their nests, well, that depends on the type of woodpecker. Most species make their homes in tree cavities created by other animals, such as squirrels. They also use abandoned woodpecker holes. While some woodpeckers nest on tree branches or in tree hollows, the red-headed woodpecker prefers to make its home in tree cavities. And some species, such as the ladder-backed woodpecker, have second nests for raising additional broods during the breeding season. Now let's talk about their unique ability to bang their heads against solid objects without hurting themselves. To do this, they have a special anatomical structure in their skulls called a hyoid apparatus. This structure supports the woodpecker's tongue and provides a shock-absorbing cushion. Their brain is also protected by a special membrane that covers the surface of the brain and protects it from concussions. Their skull has a special bony ridge that acts as a guide for the lower jaw, limiting the extent to which it can move. And they have strong neck muscles that help them to control their head movements. Finally, they have a special adaptation in their eyes that allows them to keep them open while banging their heads. This prevents their eyes from popping out of their sockets. All these adaptations allow woodpeckers to bang their heads up to 12 times per second without suffering from concussion or injury. But why do they do it in the first place? Why don't they just use their beaks to peck at the wood? Well, it turns out that woodpeckers need to drill into wood at an angle to find insects hiding under the bark. This allows them to feed both on the insect and on the larvae, and they're able to locate the insects thanks to the sound they make when they drill. Woodpeckers listen intently to the sounds produced as they drill, and if they hear something promising, they start excavating. It's worth noting that each species of woodpecker has its own preferred drumming pattern, which is probably related to their size and beak shape. Interestingly, woodpeckers use drumming not only to find food, but also to attract a mate and defend their territory. And they're also able to distinguish between different drumming patterns, which may be part of their communication system. If you think that all this activity doesn't require much energy, then you're sorely mistaken. A woodpecker needs to consume half of its body weight in food every year just to maintain its strength. Now that you know so much about these interesting birds, you might be wondering, can I have a woodpecker as a pet? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Woodpeckers are wild animals that cannot survive in captivity. Besides, imagine the damage they could do to your house. They'd turn it into Swiss cheese in no time. We'll give you one last fact about woodpeckers before we say goodbye. They are immune to snake venom. Yes, they're totally immune. So snakes can't do anything against them. And it looks like our feathered friends have a lot of tricks up their sleeves. If you enjoyed learning about woodpeckers, then we have good news for you. We've made videos about other fascinating creatures that you'll love. Just check out our channel and you'll see for yourself.